Hello, Mike. It's good to see you.
Hey Meredith, how's it going?
It's pretty good. So, for those of you who are watching right now, this is the Speakers Lounge, and I am going to start bringing on a guest once a month on the first Monday at noon Eastern Time. And Mike Texera is the first person that I am bringing into the Speakers Lounge. So, I'm very excited to have
I'm
you
the
as my
guinea
guest.
pig? All
You're my
right.
guinea pig.
Nice.
I mean, if you want to look at it that way, sure.
I love it. I
Um,
love it. I'm the pioneer. Let's call it I'm pioneer.
You are the pioneer. You are the pioneer.
Cool.
I'm going to take these glasses off so people don't need to look at my ring light the whole entire time we're having this conversation in the beautiful glare there. So Mike and we met actually via TikTok. That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah, I was introduced to the brilliance that is Meredith through TikTok. Yeah, I fell in love with your video series.
Well, thank you. And Mike does something very similar to me, and so we're going to talk a little bit today about how a lot of you are brilliant human beings. You're very knowledgeable in what you do. You present beautifully. I mean, you present your work beautifully as an expert, but when it comes to presentations, there's a little bit of a disconnect. And so what we're going to talk about today, because what Mike is really brilliant at is the design elements. And he also, I'm going to let you introduce yourself because you also have a background in theater and whatnot.
I
And
do.
if people can't tell, I'm still waking up from this weekend. So I'm going to pass the baton over to you. Introduce
the,
yourself, and then we'll move on from there.
the groggy Monday lounge.
Oh my
Maybe you can
goodness, it's real. It is real today.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
is real.
No, I hear you. I hear you. Introduction. I did. I thought I was going to be an actor. I went to Emerson College. I majored. I actually didn't major in theater. At the last minute, I freaked out and I said, "Oh my God, I'm going to have a piece of paper that says I majored in theater. Let me switch to theatrical education because education pays really well." Uh, and that's what my degree is
Amazing.
in. Went to LA, did the whole audition thing, cattle call thing, spent my time auditioning, really more than working. But I ended up falling into a temp job at Paramount Studios. And it was there that I was introduced to corporate communication. That took me down a whole other path of design, creative direction. And I did that kind of creative services in the corporate space for 25, 30 years from there. But of course, it's in my blood to be a performer. So getting in front of a room, painting the picture of an idea, getting people excited about an idea was really my sweet spot, and using visuals to supplement that. So when I started reinventing myself about 7 years ago, I said, what do I really love? What am I really passionate about? And the thing that really gave me fulfillment was working with C-suite, working with executives to get them through the fear of presenting, getting them to enjoy it, and really helping them understand that it's not just slides and it's not just speaker training, but it's the intersection of those two where you can really, really make magic happen in the room. So we started an agency called Deck about 7 years ago, and it's been great since.
Oh, terrific. Well, and what we're hoping, Mike and I are hoping to do is to collaborate too, because we have that rich theater background. We have that passion for helping other people really stand out. And so I'm just excited to have this conversation with you today. I want to welcome Gloria. It's so wonderful to see you, Gloria. Thank you for being here. If you do have questions as we continue with this conversation, please feel free to put those in the chat and we can address those questions for you. So we're talking about how you are brilliant, but your presentations are not. So let's talk a little bit about why that title. I'll share a little bit about why I felt that title was important, and then I would love for you to take a deep dive, Mike, and talk about why you feel that that title is important, or maybe we'll just totally be in alignment with it. And there's nothing else to be said, but I feel like there's a lot to be said, to be completely honest with you. So we both have watched a tremendous amount of presentations throughout our life, and most of the presentations I see, to be completely honest with you, are mediocre at best. And the reason why is because you're brilliant, you are very knowledgeable, you're the expert in your field of study or what it is that you do for your business. But there's not all of the elements are in alignment when you're presenting your service or your product. So you might be really knowledgeable. You might be able to talk about something ad nauseum, but then those visuals are not lining up with it, or the visuals are mediocre or less than mediocre at best. And then how you're presenting it is not in alignment. So when they are, however, in alignment, magic can happen. And that magic is usually really getting the attention of your customer or client and being able to better sell your idea, your services, and your products. And so, Mike, I would love it if you could speak into that a little bit as well.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think it was a great topic. It was a great title, and I thought a lot about it. I mean, what makes something brilliant? It takes the work of somebody else, to come in and shine that up or to refine it. And I think speaking is like that. So many brilliant people in their own categories went through such a gamut of professors, training, apprenticeships to get to that industry height that they're at, but they haven't done the same thing necessarily on the presentation space. And to get to be a brilliant speaker, it usually takes a combination of things. It takes, presence. It takes understanding how to put yourself in the shoes of your audience, and it also takes this very delicate balance that a lot of people struggle with, of trying to figure out how slides can really help add that emotional impact, but not steal your thunder and not steal your focus. And that's very important, because if you think of any great movie, a beautiful set can put you in that space. It can give you that feeling of that scene or that dialogue that's happening. But a distracting set can completely blow a movie for you. Presenting's no different than that, but you trained to be a psychologist. You trained to be an engineer. You didn't train to, present and to move emotionally with visuals and pace and presence. So that's why it's helpful for, I think, this conversation, for people to start understanding that, hey, it's okay. You don't have to be awesome at everything. I know some control freaks out there are like, damn it.
I
But
know, I know. Well, I love all of these things that you're saying. And it's like, we want all of the elements to work. We want to know why they're all there. So one thing that we learn as, that I've learned as a theater practitioner is that when you put a prop in the space on stage, that prop should be used. Otherwise, there's no purpose for that prop. So
right.
it's very similar to when we're giving a presentation. If you're going to be putting a lot of information, details, and so forth on slides, then you need to purposefully, intentionally be using them and not competing with them, which is what I often see, is that someone will start talking and sharing their information, and there's a visual up there with, usually it's not a visual, it's usually 3/4 text with some sort of a
Right,
visual,
right,
with
right.
some sort of a diagram. And so what's happening is that they're speaking while your audience is trying to understand what's on the visual. And so what happens is you're competing with what people are reading and looking at. And so that is not a way that you want to come across, because it diminishes your credibility, and also your audience isn't gaining as much information and education as they could.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes I love your metaphor about the props. Sometimes people take the carrot top approach, where they show up with a slide that has so many elements that they plan to pursue, but they're not there yet, and they unveiled it too early. So it's like Carrot Talk
Yeah.
coming to the stage, and he places a big stick of dynamite and 10 other props. The whole time you're going to be like focused on that stick of dynamite, going, what is he going to do with that? You know what I mean? And so many people do that. They put up an amazing stat and they spend 15 minutes talking about everything except the stat, and I'm sitting there going, 15% are smokers. What does that mean? Where's he going with this? Why is that up there? And then I'm like, what? Huh? What else did they say? That's
Yes.
your audience.
It is. It's interesting. I have this group called Confidently Speaking. We do improv for speakers in that group, but it came up last week where somebody we were talking about how vocal variety was what we were talking about, but we were
Mhm.
talking about building. Like you have to start somewhere. If you start with like high energy and the dynamite on stage at the very top, then there's nowhere else to go.
Right,
So
right.
you have to give yourself as the presenter somewhere to go, and you get to guide your audience through an experience, and then you can get to the dynamite and the big emotions at the
Mhm.
end if you want
Right.
to. But we can't start with the big stuff at the beginning, which is what I'm hearing you say a lot of people tend to do as well, or they're curious about
Absolutely.
what that big stat is, but you're not addressing it.
Absolutely, and that's why I'm so glad we're teaming up, because I feel like we're so aligned that
Yeah.
there's so much planning. Well, let me not scare the audience. I don't want you to feel like there's so much planning. What I'm trying to say is an important element is planning. Period. Stop. The planning that goes in front and just thinks about things like pacing and says, okay, what is this journey that someone is going to take? Where are they going to come in? Where am I going to come in? And where are we going to end up? That's so important. One of my favorite writers on this topic, Nancy Duarte, talks a
Yes,
lot about the audience's journey. If you haven't read her books, please
she's
do.
great.
Great resource. And it's true. You can't just start at 100%. You're not going to sustain yourself. You're going to
Mhm,
burn out your audience. And everything's going to kind of lose importance as you're going along. If everything sounds important, then nothing is. Um,
mhm.
and yeah, that's totally vital. And I love that you and I are so in alignment with that, because I feel like we can start at that same place. We can say, okay, what's the plan for this presentation? Then we
Mhm.
can talk about the behaviors of the delivery and the structure of the presentation as two other steps that then all combined will then help speakers become more brilliant than they were, the week before.
Yeah, because that brilliance leads to better outcomes. And you had mentioned something about how it's important, like an actor, for example, whether you're on film or you're on stage, you have a director because it's impossible for you to be able to see. You don't have the same perception that somebody
Mhm.
who's seeing what you're doing from the outside is seeing,
Yeah,
right? So it's important to have that director or that coach help you through that journey, especially if it's something that's more high stakes. That's something that for whether you're looking for funding or whether it's the release of a new product or it's an idea that you're getting out into the world. Maybe you've just launched a new book. Who knows what it is? But it's important that you get that outside perspective. Oftentimes, what I find is, especially within the corporate environment, is that you get these presentations on a pretty regular basis, or you're asked to present at conferences on a pretty regular basis. But what happens is we start to model the behavior to our other colleagues, or leadership is modeling that behavior, that this is the way I just presented this with all of the things that we talked about that are problematic, that they set the tone like this is actually an okay, acceptable way to present. But what is it? Because what are your
right.
outcomes? And have you ever asked yourself the question, would my sales increase if I got better at this? Would we have better customer retention? Or what are your thoughts on that, Mike?
Yeah, so many good points there. First, what I want to talk about is that idea of when you're preparing a presentation, are you really preparing it for your audience, or are you preparing it for your supervisor? Sometimes I have to have some tough love conversations with executives, and I have to say, this team knows instinctually what the audience wants to hear, and they're trying to put that in this presentation, but they know that you don't like that, or you don't want that, or you tend to feel that that's not important. And
Mhm.
so it's time for us to have a realignment, and that's super important. And I do believe that if you can become a better presenter and encourage good presentation etiquette in your team, you can close more. You can become more successful as a company. 100%. I also think that you can finally stop with this inefficient myth of multitasking. I mean, I think that's the biggest sin of modern business, that everybody should be good at everything. We all
Yeah.
know that's not true in our personal lives. You can't be on the phone and listening to a conversation at the same time. You can't be a brilliant chemist and also be a brilliant PowerPoint designer. But so many companies expect us
Yeah.
to do that. And so it's that third party for an opinion on your presence, the third party to help you maybe do slides if you don't have someone internally who can design slides. These things are important, and these things can have such a bottom line impact. A, you can let the highly trained people get back to doing their highly trained work. And B, you can save time because somebody who is really knowledgeable in communication and the techniques of communication and visual communication can do this stuff so much more quickly and easily for you and get more done in that time.
Yeah, I would agree with you. We can't be everything for everyone all of the time. And it's really wonderful when we can admit not only to ourselves, but to other people that this is not my zone of brilliance. I
Right.
need some additional help here. I also think it's really beneficial too when that's why I like working with teams and with leadership if I can get them in the room as well, which is to get everybody on the same page so that everyone has the same vocabulary and the same set of tools to use and to pull from so that your teams, I mean, for me, I feel like I have been a great success if I have given you and your team enough tools to where you don't really need to hire me back each and every time. I mean, though I would love to have that retainer with all of you, I want you to also feel empowered that
Right.
you can go out and help each other as a team.
Absolutely. My biggest goal is to make myself no longer necessary,
Yeah.
then teach people how to outline quickly, teach people the techniques of creating this good presence when you're in the room, and hopefully then they share internally, and then we can talk about, do you have a design resource? Do you have someone who's actually good at thinking about how to translate all those reams of text into three icons or one photo that says all of that? If so, then how do we leverage that person? And if not, then who can you get as a partner to help you create those quickly and efficiently?
Yeah, exactly. And how
I
can
like
you help?
Gloria's comment here. Wait, people still use PowerPoint?
Yes, they do, Gloria. Yes, they
No,
do.
you
You got
more
my
than you
head for
know.
that one because my microphone's right here. Yes, a lot of people still use PowerPoint.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a lot of variations now. You got
Yeah,
Canva presentations, you got Apple Keynote. You have people using these new beautiful AI engines. But if the
yeah.
fundamentals of how to structure an argument and how to structure a story isn't there, then all those tools really fall flat, and you still end up with death by PowerPoint.
Yeah, yeah. So I definitely please do check out Mike's work. It's presentations by deck. I have the .com. I have that link right here. So please check him out or follow him on LinkedIn if you're not already. I feel like it for me, it's my mission to make sure that all of these elements are in alignment for people because I do want to see people succeed more on stages. I want to see them succeed more with their colleagues internally or their stakeholders or whomever it is that they are presenting to, and that it can be scary. So I want to share that piece too. So a lot of what happens is that we can talk about this too. There's multiple things at play. Either people don't like to present, so how can we shift that mindset so that people can step into that and feel more empowered to deliver? So then what happens, I feel, is that sometimes these things that we were talking about that would highlight your brilliance gets kind of shoved to the side. Like the slides are kind of secondary. The how you're presenting becomes kind of secondary. It's more about survival. So I'm excited about like, let's get past the survival piece because you're going to live. So far, you've presented a gazillion times and your audience has not eaten you once.
Right, right.
You're still
Not
here.
once have they thrown a tomato. Yeah.
Not once have they thrown a tomato. It's that piece of it too, which is the mindset piece of it that you may not be the most brilliant presenter in the world, and that's okay because you're a brilliant human who needs to share what it is, whether that be a story or a product or a service, but people need to hear it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think they need to hear it now more than ever, because look at what's going on in marketing. What's really exciting, what's really resonating with folks? It's casual videos. It's videos where people present themselves as the real deal, as who they are. They come to the camera, they come to their TikTok channels or Instagram reels as authentic people. Now, how do you get there with a layer of corporate goals on top of it? There is a way, but that requires some real introspection as a team, and thinking about, how do I become more empathetic? How do I think about what people are saying and what they're really asking for? And also, how do I become more present as a presenter? How do I stand in that room and notice the tilt of the head when I lose someone, and how do I react to that? Those are those unspoken talents that people can be trained on, but they don't think about. And I think in 2024 they're more vital than ever before, because the minute folks watch a speaker on a stage, or a speaker comes into their conference room and they put up those fake veneers of old corporate, I'm in charge, I'm a businessman, here's my tie, here's my acronyms, they totally lose, the connection. And they say, well, I get much more authentic feeling from this quick video this other competitor threw up than this person who's in front of the room. So that's what you're competing with, and that's the reality of the world. And I love it, because I feel like we're all moving to such a more authentic, empathetic place.
Yeah.
But there's a divide right now about how we think about structuring a presentation, and how we think, oh, those influencers are just doing something wacky on the side. No, they're related, and your
Very
audience is showing you that they prefer one versus the other.
100%. Like there's no
Yeah.
they're looking for more transparency. They're looking for you to stop compartmentalizing, but to bring, there's that word authentic that we hear it a lot. And so my definition of that, and I'm curious if you have a definition of it as well, which is, it's to really bring your true spirit and your personality into every space.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
that's and that's all we're asking.
Yeah. Be the same person you are with your most loved partner in the business world as you are at home. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we want it, and it's interesting, because sometimes I feel what happens is that our audience, or who we perceive our audience to be, sometimes will dictate how we show up, which is
Mhm.
tricky, right? Because it's you want to craft your presentation for your audience. You want to be in service of, you want to give them value. But at the same time, you can't allow who you think your audience is to dictate how you show up.
Right, right. So true. One bit of advice I got along those lines that I thought was so valuable was show up early, if possible. Show up early, mill about, ask some questions. It just diffuses that fear a
Yeah.
little bit when you're like, oh my God, that person, I know that person's on a deadline, and that person, I've been there, and oh, this person's really kind of cool and funky, and I love this person. And they asked a good question. How can I reply to that when I'm speaking to them?
Yeah.
Yeah, show up early, but that's just one of many ways to, yeah,
Yeah.
really stop thinking about the mythical Hydra beast of an audience that is sitting there
Yes.
in judgment, and start thinking of them as other humans with needs and wants. And once you start thinking of those needs and wants, you go, oh, yeah, they're probably just like me. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I
Mhm.
can't tell you how many times I've facilitated workshops where you talk to a couple people who are in charge, and they talk a little bit about who the team is that you're going to step into. And all of this build up, build up, build up, build up, where I'm like, oh my God, I'm so nervous. They're going to eat me alive.
Right, right.
Everyone's going to be like sitting in suits and very stiff. And then you get in there and you're like, oh, you're this is nothing. You're a human being just
Yeah.
like me. What was all that build up for? So I always invite people to just, yes, find that way that you can really show up. And I love somebody said the term authentic is getting a little bit cliche, or there's a question mark there. I would say, yes, it is. And yes, I love that word real. And so thank you. You're popping up as LinkedIn user. If we know each other, hello. Thank you for watching. And the other piece that I wanted to say, Mike, is that that was the piece that I wanted to share, was that we also cannot oh no, I had two things I wanted to say. I lost my thought
All
and then
right.
I found both my thoughts. Thank you. So the first one that I like to share with people that I feel really resonates is that you are the host of your own party when you're presenting. You have full control over that room. So you get to, if you want people to take their shoes off at the door, then you get to tell people to take their shoes off at the door. If you want
Yeah.
them to leave their cameras off, then whatever. If you want them on, then tell them you want them on. If you want to play, music as people are coming into the room, then play music as they come into the room. How do you want your audience to feel? Just like if you were to host a dinner party, it's really no different. You have control. And then if you leave something out, they're not going to know it. But I
Right.
will say what they do notice is when the reason why we're here is when your brilliance is not in alignment with how you're presenting your material and visually how you are showcasing your material. And
Yeah.
so if
Yeah.
those three elements are in alignment, I feel that's where the pure gold can happen.
Yeah, great points. One thing that you're reminding me of is a story about a client that I had taught him the new way to outline, the way we like to outline
Uh-huh.
presentations, where you use post-its and you outline stuff. And he wanted to know about what to do about printing out the presentation, and I showed him how to print it out with notes and stuff. But one bit of advice I always give clients is don't hand out your slides before the presentation. If at all you can avoid it, just keep them till the end of the presentation so
Mhm.
that it's fresh, so that people aren't thumbing through your slides and judging where you're going to go, so that you're really the expert in the room. So
Yeah.
anyway, this client gets to this big meeting that we had been prepping him for, and the biggest, scariest executive above him walked into the room and said, "Where are the slides?" And he said, "I'm driving the bus today, sir. So you're just going to sit there and enjoy the ride." And I was like, whoa, what an empowering moment. And you know what happened? This is my favorite part of the story. The guy went, "Okay." And he sat down ready to take the ride. This guy he was so afraid of. So, yeah.
Oh, I love that
Taking
story.
power in those moments is so important, because at the end of the day, the ultimate goal above everything, on the minutia you want to solve, is you want
Yeah.
to come to the room and be the authority on whatever you're presenting about, because that is what's going to get you advancement. That's what's going to get you to close a deal. That's what's going to get your project, signed off on for the next step, is people believing in you at the end of the
Yeah.
day. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. And you reminded me too that some people who are watching right now, maybe, and I know others that I've worked with in the past, sometimes you have to present somebody else's deck. Sometimes you have to present somebody else's presentation. And that can be tricky too. So along those lines of what you just shared there too, Mike, is how do you make that your own? How,
Yeah.
which is really hard to do sometimes.
It is, but it goes back to, I think, connecting to the human elements of the
Mhm.
narrative. It's saying, okay, I'm presenting about how we improved this lever on this machine. What in my life gave me that frustration the same way the workers in this factory are feeling frustrated about the lack of this lever or this pull? Let me start off by talking about that frustration, applying it to now what I'm going to present, and then taking them to the solution. That just connection of your personal struggle and identifying what people are really solving for and how that connects to your story can really make material, no matter who wrote it initially, your own. And it's
Yeah.
finding those connections throughout a presentation like that can really bring it home.
Ah, beautiful. Thank you, Mike. This has been such a fun conversation. That 30 minutes went by so fast.
It did. Just the tip of the iceberg, though. Come back
It
for
was
more.
just the tip. It
Yeah.
was. We will be back here doing more. Please reach out to Mike, Presentations by Deck. Your work is amazing. I'm so glad that we get to collaborate with each other and that you reached out to me. And thank you for being my guinea pig on the very first speakers lounge with a guest, because I was
My
doing these
pleasure.
solo. I was like, I am not a solo artist. I am a I am a
Yeah, right?
collaborator. Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
I'm
And
feeling the same way. I'm coming out of my COVID cave. I'm trying to find people to connect with and collaborate with, and this has been wonderful. So, yeah.
yeah, it has been. And I want to thank everybody who has been watching and commenting. And I appreciate so much your support. And if any of you ever need any additional help or support or coaching with your presentations, please reach out to myself or Mike or both of us. We make a great team,
Yep.
and we'd be delighted to help you with that. All right, Mike, have an amazing week ahead. And thank you again for being on the Speakers Lounge.
You too. Thank you. Take care.